Hello and welcome. My name is Rubyace and today I give you my impressions about the Ouya console which I promised during the opening of the package. So I have had the console for around a week now. Spent some time with it and I think I have formed up an opinion that is ready to be shared with you guys. So before I go into the software side of things, I have nothing really to say about the physical elements of the console, but when it comes to controller, it feels cheap, it looks cheap, but the D-pad, analog sticks and the buttons are decent, and even though it feels cheap controller, it's fine in that perspective, but the triggers, or what you like to call them, back pedal, the buttons have some sort of problem since you have no actual grip on them. They are just blocks behind the controller where when you have to use them a lot, your fingers might just easily slip off and they are not very nice to use. It's a bit of a problem in my opinion. Other than that, the controller works fine and does the job. When it comes to the software side of the Ouya console, without going into games and applications and so on, there is a problem with the wireless connection. I was able to connect it wirelessly, then after a minute or so it disconnects, and then I reconnect, it disconnects, and that goes on. I'm not sure if that is constantly happening or just in the start of it when you try to set up your account, but I just plugged in the cable and it works fine with that one, so it doesn't really matter for me in that aspect. But of course, if you are looking forward of using it with wireless connection, there might be some problems for you in the line, so that's something that you have to keep eye out. Other problem that I've had with the software side of console is that there is overscanning issues. There is one fix for the overscan in the menu, but for me it doesn't do anything at all. So if you don't know about overscanning, I'm not expert, but what I have understood about it is that it tries to put 1080 HD picture in your TV, which doesn't necessarily support that 1080. Like mine only does support 720p because it's only HD ready TV, and so it cuts all the corners and basically zooms in a little bit, which can affect some games and some other programs or applications. So those are the software and hardware things that I don't like, and other than that it works fairly well on those parts. And when it comes to software, before I go to games, there are quite a limited amount of applications currently on the system. There is Twitch streaming servers, there is some radio stream servers which lets you listen to radio via your Ouya console, and possibility to stream music, movies, games even from your computer to your console. But it's working like the guy what's that called system, but for me that's useless because my TV and computer are less than a meter away from each other, so I can just plug in HDMI cable and use that one. But anyway, there is those. But the Twitch application is something that I was interested and I have tried it a little bit, and so far I've noticed that it works actually quite well. It doesn't seem to struggle. The quality of the picture is good. Only problem I have is the overscanning issue, which of course won't be a problem for everyone, but for me it cuts the corners and causes some problems, but that's not Twitch application's fault. It works fine. When we go into games and emulators and stuff, you can really see that the emulators are the shining point in the console. There is emulators for everything up to PlayStation and Nintendo 64, and that is PlayStation 1. Everything older than those consoles and those consoles included pretty much emulated. I believe there was some old console DOS emulators, pretty much everything that has existed, so that is something that might interest someone if you are looking for emulator console, though you can't do that with PC easily, so that is a thing, of course. But what I've played with the SNES emulator and Nintendo 64 emulator. I haven't played with the other ones because I don't really have any games that I want to play with on those emulators, but so far I've noticed that the emulators run very well. They have a lot of tweaking options, and there is actually no problems so far what I've seen, and the controller works very well for those games, apart from Mario Kart 64, which I had problems with the Ouya controller, but to be honest, I've had problems with that game even on PC with my Xbox 360 controller, so that might be just the emulator not working correctly with the game or something else. Anyway, so the emulators are quite nice, and I like the feature that you can play emulated games. Of course, it's not that good of a selling point because of the PC and emulating, but anyway, when it comes to the actual games of the system, there is a huge amount of different kind of small games, indie games, which some of them are completely free, some have shorter testing demos or whatever, and so on. There is very little of AAA or big publisher titles. There is Final Fantasy III, which is the remake for the DS, which is published by Square Enix and made by them also. That is available, but it is also available for Android tablets, if I recall correctly, and most likely phones also. So that's nothing that spectacular. And there is also Bard Tale from In Exile, which is already 8 years old game from 2005. It was PlayStation 2 era game, and maybe others. There is actually quite a lot of titles available, so I haven't found everyone or tried everything. I've tried to download as much as possible, but of course there is still loads of stuff that I haven't tried out. So the games are, well, with a huge variety. Some of the free demos are quite limited. You can play one level, tutorial or something along those lines, and then you have to buy the game. But mostly they give you quite nice impression actually about the game, and you should know if you actually like it or not. There are few games that are, well, not impressive graphically as, let's say, Crysis 3, but still quite good looking games. And so far, when it comes to the compatibility and how the games work, majority of the games work fine. There's only one, I have found only one game that has some lag issues. I'm not sure what that was about. The game was playable, but it still had lag. And one game that, well, was just complete direct port from the Android platform. It didn't even work on the console. You can open it, but it requires mouse or touchpad to actually operate the game. So you could not even start it with controller. You just had to watch the starting screen. But most of the games are working quite well. There are some optimization, well, not optimization, but port issues. Like, if I remember correctly, in Part-Tail there was wrong buttons telling you that you have to press, let's say, the O key, and it actually was the Y key that you had to press. There's some stupid errors, but most of the games are fine. Of course, there are smaller titles from indie developers, so you should not really expect from AAA titles from that console, but it's not really for that purpose anyway, apart from the Square Enix style Final Fantasy 3, which I mentioned. So that is some sort of sum up about the games and the system. What if I would have to recommend it, or would I recommend it? I would say that it feels very small niche, or I don't really know who would really need it. Maybe it would benefit the countries and people with less income, but I'm not still sure if it's still too expensive to be sold in the third world countries, but it's still not good enough for the Western markets in my opinion. It does not do anything that well that other consoles or PC does. It doesn't have really any games that are system sellers. There are Ouya exclusive games, but those games, well, they might be entertaining, they might take a couple hours of your life and so on, but they are not something that you would buy the console for. They are those small indie games which you find dozens in Steam. Everyone knows those puzzle games, platformers, twin stick shooters, whatever. Nothing special, to be honest. When it comes to the emulator side, those are quite nice. Of course, it can be used as emulator device. If you don't have controller for your PC, you might like to have a console which you can use as an emulator with controller, but it's cheaper to buy controller for PC than the console. But if you of course like to do it with your TV and your TV is not next to your computer like I have, then it might be useful for that. And the Twitch app is nice, and once again it feels the need if you want to watch Twitch live streams from your TV and your TV is far away from computer and you can plug it in to the computer. But I said it feels very small market. It's more of a thing that people might want to get just for because of their curiosity, and most likely that is what sold the console for many. And at the current state there is actually no real need to get it, especially when the 360 has Twitch viewing app if I recall correctly, and soon the Xbox One will have it, and so on. And of course you can watch Twitch TV from your computer, so that's a thing. So I would not really go and recommend it for $100 or whatever is the price in your area. I remember for $100 was the pre-order price which I had to pay plus the shipping. So I think that pretty much concludes it. I will still play some emulator games just because why not? It's the plug-in and so on. Oh, there was one thing that I forgot to mention. The console doesn't seem to shut off at all. You shut it down, you turn on the TV, it starts again. So it's a bit annoying, and I don't really know how much it increases electricity bills, but that is something to keep an eye out. The console has mind of its own. But other than that, I think that I have told you everything that you need to know about the Ouya console. So thank you for watching. My name is Rubyace and I hope to talk to you again. Goodbye.